Chapter 8. Bella, I'm becoming more and more attracted to Adam. I'm a little worried. Al put the bridle on her bay mare, double-checking the fit. It was almost time for the children to arrive for their riding lessons. It had been 3 days since they had flown back from London, and Adam had worked late almost every night. He told her he needed to finish the software he'd designed because customers were waiting for it. Al had spent her time organizing the arrival of her new horse, as well as setting the schedule for the children's lessons. After a week of growing closer together, it felt like each of them were running to their separate corners. Worried about what? Bella held the barn door open for Al as she got ready to bring the horses into the fenced riding area at the Jennings ranch. Becoming emotionally attached to each other wasn't part of our deal. I'm worried my feelings for Adam are going to end in heartache. She placed the saddle on the horse's back and began cinching the belt. So, he kissed you again, huh? Bella teased. A flush crept up Elle's face as her best friend quickly figured out the source of all her angst. Yes, but it's not only his kisses that make me nervous. Al patted the horse's neck as her gaze met Bella's steady one. It's just that he's treated me so well and has even shared what happened with his ex-fiancée. The truth is, I care about him, and that really terrifies me. Al's shoulders slumped in misery. Listen to me. Bella let the door close and walked toward her and put her hands on her shoulders, looking deeply into her eyes. I understand you're scared. I'm sure if I were in your shoes, I would be panicking right about now. But you've said Adam's been really good to you, and you've been more open with each other than ever. I say, why not enjoy it? Al sighed. But that wasn't the deal Adam and I made when we got married. Our fake marriage is not supposed to be about attraction. It's about helping each other get what we want, and then we're supposed to go our separate ways. Relationships don't usually do what they're supposed to, Bella grinned. Also, what if Adam figures out he wants more than just the ranch? What if he realizes what he really wants is you? Her friend put her hands on her hips, head cocked to the side, and stared at her with laser-like focus. I'd be very surprised. Besides, if that were true, how come he hasn't talked to me since we got back home? He's been busy, same as you. Al shrugged. Maybe. To be honest, I'm a little annoyed at him. The mare beside her shook her head from side to side, stomping the ground with one foot. You just need to talk to him, Al. Bella walked ahead of her and opened the door into the fenced riding area. Maybe you're right. Well, it looks like the children are waiting for us. It's time we brought the horses outside. As Al and Bella walked into the riding arena, some of the children were already waiting on the other side of the fence. Al looked up, happy when she saw Bree standing there with her friend Danny. Al had stopped by the safe house as soon as they got back from London, and asked Bree if she'd like to learn to ride and take care of the horses every week. Bree had jumped at the chance and asked if she could bring her new friend. Why don't we let the newest group members go first? The children nodded, and Bella opened the gate for Bree to step forward. Bree, I'm glad you're here. Today we will focus on letting you and the horses get acquainted. Why don't you pet the horse and let her get to know you? Elle saw the tight line of her lips and how she clutched her hands in a tight knot behind her. It's okay. We'll just go slow, and Misty is as gentle as a lamb, Al reassured Bree. Elle ran her hand down Misty's neck and rubbed her nose. Now you try. Bree hesitantly followed the movements Al showed her. Am I doing this the right way? You're doing great. There isn't any right way, not really. This is simply about you and the horse learning to trust each other. Misty stood still as Bree rubbed her nose. It's soft like velvet. The horse nudged Bree a little. That's her way of letting you know she likes your touch and wants more of it. Al chuckled at the gleam of happiness and confidence in Bree's gaze. Al sighed with satisfaction. This was why she loved the horse therapy program. A fresh passion had stirred in Al since they found Bree in their shed, shivering with fear. Now the once wild-eyed teenager was learning to trust, and day by day she was recovering. What Jacob Jennings had begun years ago had become her dream. She wanted to do what she could to help troubled children, teenagers, and adults who suffered from abuse and trauma to heal. By the time the session was done, a small smile appeared on Bree's face. It might take me a while to warm up to her, but I'm already looking forward to the next lesson. It was worth it to see a little shine of happiness in Bree's eyes. You and the horse are learning together how to overcome your fears and to trust each other. It's okay if it takes a little bit of time. Elle took the reins and walked back to where the other students were waiting. Elle worked with Danny and the rest of the children until the afternoon sun began to fade and the children went home. Bella and Elle were ready to put the horses to pasture when Elle spotted her stepmother coming their way. "Elle, just what do you think you're doing, still giving lessons here?" Her stepmother folded her arms, her mouth set in a hard line. "Lilith, we talked about this, remember? We agreed I would continue the horse therapy program here even after I married Adam." "I know, but I've changed my mind." Her stepmother clenched her jaw. "It's too loud, and it disturbs me. I don't like the idea of this therapy program continuing on my ranch." "Except it's not only your ranch anymore. Did you get the notice from the bank that I paid $200,000 on the mortgage last week and that it's now paid in full?" Elle wasn't surprised that her stepmother had changed her mind again. When she lived at home, Lilith did that on a regular basis. "Yes, I did," her stepmother pouted and grudgingly shrugged. "Oh, all right, I suppose you can continue your little horse therapy program here, but I don't like it." The woman glared at her before turning on her heel and stomping back to the house. "Wow, she's mad." Bella looked over her shoulder at Elle as they led the horses into the pasture and set them free to roam. "Yes, my stepmother has never liked the horse therapy programs even when my dad did them. She didn't complain too much before because I paid for all the feed. Any money I had left over I gave to her. But now she's not seeing any benefit from it, so she doesn't want me to continue." Elle rubbed her forehead as she closed the gate to the pasture. "Well, I'm not going to worry about it." "You have enough on your mind, Elle. Maybe it's time to go home, find that handsome husband of yours, and talk to him," Bella encouraged. "I will." Elle hugged her friend and waved as Bella drove away. After double-checking that everything was in place, Elle hurried along the path toward Adam's ranch. But all her good intentions were for nothing. Elle waited up until she couldn't keep her eyes open anymore. She fell asleep on the couch. Sometime in the night she dreamed her husband had placed a feather-light kiss on her cheek, but when she woke up in the morning, Adam was gone. A few hours later, a text message appeared on her phone. "Hi, Al. Hope you slept okay last night. That couch isn't very comfortable." "Yeah, it's okay. Was extra tired, so I slept soundly. How about you?" Al texted back. She was glad to hear he had come home last night. "I'm good. Hey, my mother just reminded me of our company's anti-human trafficking benefit gala tonight. I'm sorry I forgot to mention it sooner. Would it work for you to be ready for the driver to pick you up at 6 o'clock in the evening?" Sure. It's formal, right?" Her fingers shook a little as she texted. She was uncomfortable at the thought of being in the room with so many people dressed up in formal clothes. She'd be like a fish out of water. "Yes, it's formal dress. Al, I look forward to seeing you tonight then." The text ended. Al was glad she'd finally get to see Adam tonight. It was a good thing they had done all that shopping in London. At least now she had something to wear. All she had to do was not make a fool of herself in front of Adam or his family and friends. The afternoon swept by quickly, and Al enjoyed a nice bath as she got ready for the gala. As 6 o'clock drew near, Al took one last look in the mirror. She had decided to wear an off-the-shoulder sequin emerald green evening gown. Tiny gold earrings shimmered in the light. Her neck was bare without any jewelry. Her hair was up in a twist with tiny ringlets swaying on each cheek. A French twist was the only hairstyle she knew how to do besides her usual ponytail. She slipped on matching lacy evening shoes that completed her outfit. With one last look in the mirror, she took a deep breath. Elle was as ready as she'd ever be to make her debut appearance into Adam's world. "Yes, I will be releasing the beta version of this new software in a couple of weeks." Adam spoke to 5 business associates who had asked about his new security software. He was just about to share more details when his gaze was captivated by a woman in an emerald green gown standing by the entrance. His wife. Adam's heart thumped against his rib cage. Elle was a vision. It was difficult to believe this woman was his. "Sorry, everyone. I'll explain more details later. Right now, I need to go see my wife." Elle, the crooning of her name as it shifted through his brain was enough to make his limbs feel more powerful and his chest swell. He hadn't really talked to her since they got back from London. It was his own fault. On some level, the intimacy that had began with Elle during their week away had brought deep-seated fears to the surface. Could admit now that the breakup with Alicia had been coming. He hadn't been completely sold on the relationship and felt guilty for letting her down. And he still had a constant dread that anyone who loved him would suffer. A new awareness surged through him that his fake wife was slipping through the cracks in the walls he had carefully placed around his heart. Tonight he wanted to do what he could to fix things with Elle. "You look stunning." He leaned over, kissing her cheek. Her green eyes widened as she looked up at him. "Sorry I haven't been around much these past few days." He held his arm out slightly, and she slipped her hand into the curve of his arm. "I understand. You've been busy." Her forced smile and the cool tone in her voice convinced him she didn't understand at all. "Elle, we'll talk later, okay?" "Sure." He led her toward a table near the stage where the rest of his family were gathered. Hopefully the evening would be shorter than usual, so he could have that conversation with his wife. "Elle, how wonderful that you've joined us." His mom kissed her cheek as she sat down beside her. "It's good to be here," Elle smiled, nodding at his grandparents and brothers. Gabe stood and made his way onto the stage. He talked about what they did at Stevenson 𝙫𝙫 Development Corporation and then started to talk about the foundation. "Please welcome one of the biggest inspirations behind this benefit foundation, my mom, Eliza Stevenson." "That's my cue." Eliza Stevenson stood and Adam walked her onto the stage. Adam waited by her side until she seemed settled. His mom's face was beautiful but pale. Adam remembered Dad always liked the color blue on Mom because it accented her blue eyes. This was her first time speaking at the foundation they started last year to help bring an end to human trafficking. Her sons had coaxed her into speaking tonight. When she finally agreed, Adam decided he would not miss this first time his mother shared her story. His mom's voice wavered a little as she began. "My 5 sons started this charity with Stevenson 𝙫𝙫 Development Corporation to do what they could to add to the lives that are saved from human trafficking." Mom's passion shone through the words she spoke to the businessmen and women gathered in the room. "Tonight, I wanted to share my story so you'll understand why we are passionate sponsors." His mom's hand shook as she paused to sip from her bottled water. "All the stories you hear from victims of human trafficking are unique in their own way. My story is a little different too. I was forced to quit a safe job with my best friend so I could work at an unsavory casino and bar in an unsafe neighborhood. It was my stepfather who gave me an ultimatum. It was either I obeyed my stepfather or he wouldn't pay for my mother's medical bills. I was 19 but was still living at home because my mother was sick with cancer. My mother was dying and I just wanted a little more time with her. I was desperate for her to have all the medicine she needed. Being coerced by my stepfather to work in that dirty bar was like being in a prison cell being forced to do things I didn't want to do. That is, until the day Daniel Stevenson happened by that ratty old place. He discovered the reason I was there and saved me from a horrible fate. He saved myself and others from that place, even though he knew it would cause big problems for himself. He selflessly put his reputation and safety on the line, and for that I'll always be very thankful." She took a deep breath before she continued. "My sons and I miss their father very much. We're passionate just like he was to do what we can to help others who are taken and forced against their will." Eliza took a deep breath before continuing. "I like to imagine my beloved husband looking down from heaven with a smile lighting up his face tonight, telling us we've done well. All of us have. Thank you for joining with us in supporting this cause." Loud clapping began, and those in the room stood to their feet. Adam looked at each of his brothers and saw the shine of pride in their eyes at their mother's courage in sharing her story. Her words had struck a chord with many people gathered at this gala event. "She did good." Zach's grin was a mile wide. "Your mother gives new meaning to the word brave." Their granddad thumped his intricately carved wooden cane at his side. "That's so true." Grandmom had taken a tissue out of her purse to dab at the corner of her eyes. I had no idea. Your mum is so courageous. Elle pulled out a handkerchief and wiped away tears that had made their way down her cheeks. Yeah, we're proud of her. Adam stood up to help his mother slowly make her way back to their table. Many men and women shook her hand and were giving her hugs with tears in their eyes. Well, Mom finally made her way back to their table. You are amazing. I hope you know that. Dad would be so proud. Adam put his arm around his mother's shoulders and kissed her cheek. She squeezed his hand. They all sat down at the table. Thank you, Adam. Mom looked pointedly at each of her sons, her daughter-in-law, and at her parents-in-laws who sat around the table. Taking her wine glass, she said, To family. To family, Jack spoke, and everyone clinked their glasses, smiles lighting up their faces. Thanks, everyone. But enough about me. I want to hear about all of you. Eliza turned to her oldest son. Adam and Al, you go first. I want to hear how your trip was. Are you enjoying being back at the ranch? It was great to see the sights of London. We had fun. It's good to be back on the ranch, but there's a lot of work we want to do there. Adam went on to talk about the places they'd seen and the horse races. We'll need to come out to the ranch to see what you're up to. Granddad's mouth twitched and a slow smile appeared. I grew up on that old homestead. If it's restoration you want, maybe I can remember how the original place looked years ago. That would be really helpful, Granddad. Adam nodded. You should come to the ranch after my new racehorse arrives in 2 weeks. Adam bought him for my birthday. It'll be exciting to see him again, but this time on the ranch. Elle toyed with her napkin, an uncertain smile turning up the corners of her mouth. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. His grandmother nodded to Elle and winked at her grandson. Al's eyes flickered with happiness. Adam couldn't help it. He was pleased at the welcome she'd received from his family. His only regret was that right now he wasn't on the receiving end of Elle's smiles. There had to be some way to bring back the warmth of her smile. He was determined to try. Adam, do you mind if I steal your wife for a few minutes? Eliza Stevenson's eyes sparkled with fun as she turned to Adam and Elle. I want to introduce her to a few of my friends. Of course. Elle walked beside her mother-in-law as they made their way across the room to where a group of older women were talking. Betty, Mildred, and Susan, I'd like you to meet my new daughter-in-law, Elle, Adam's wife. Oh, it's nice to meet you, all three women spoke at once. Thank you. It's nice to meet you too. Elle immediately relaxed around her mother-in-law's friends as they were very welcoming. What projects do you enjoy working on, my dear? Betty quizzed Elle. I enjoy working with those who come to the ranch for horse therapy programs for disadvantaged children, as well as teenagers suffering from trauma. Elle went on to describe what sort of horse therapy worked for different problems children faced. That's wonderful, my dear. It just so happens that I'm on the board for a foundation that is focused on helping disadvantaged children to find programs that can help set them on a better path for their future. Betty grasped her hand and whispered, I will be contacting you about what spaces you have available for more children, and of course we'll talk about sponsorship too. That would be great, Betty. It was wonderful to find someone else who was also passionate to help children. The sponsorship would be a big help too, as there were always extra costs involved. Now that Betty is done cornering you about her pet project, we can talk about other things. Eliza winked at Elle. As the women chatted about each other's families, Elle's thoughts returned to Betty's offer. Now it seemed her program would be expanded in size as well as finances. She was excited to begin. Soon they were done talking and started to make their way back to their table. If you will excuse me, Mum, I need to find the little girl's room, Elle whispered to Eliza. Of course, my dear. Elle walked into the washroom, which was quiet except for one other woman. She stood by the mirror, putting on her lipstick. Before Elle could take a step forward, the woman turned to Elle and looked her over. She was tall, with a model-like face and figure. Right now a scowl scrunched up her face, diminishing her beauty. You came to this benefit gala with Adam Stevenson. Yes, I'm his wife. She was about to introduce herself, but the woman continued talking, almost without taking a breath. So you're the woman Adam married. Her voice sounded flat and confident as she gave Elle the once-over. You're certainly not classically beautiful. I wonder what he saw in you. Where are you from? Paradise Lake. It was starting to feel like an interrogation, and Al grew more uncomfortable by the minute. That small town? Wow, he must have been desperate. Her head shook from side to side, her dark brown shoulder-length hair shaking with each turn. I know 2 people from there who couldn't wait to leave. It's nothing but a hillbilly dive. Maybe some people feel that way. Al's back stiffened at the insults, but I certainly like it. Well, that's no surprise. You don't look like you have any class. The woman's gaze narrowed like a vulture circling its prey. Well, you won't last long with Adam. He was made for someone who has more style. It's only a matter of time. What did you say your name was? She glided past Al, only to turn as she opened the door. 𝙪𝙨 Wentworth. The door closed with a soft ticking sound, like the sound of a clock that was almost out of time. Al tried to ignore the inkling of doubt that licked at the hairs on the back of her neck. The worst part was, 𝙪𝙨 Wentworth was right. Al lacked all those things that Adam needed in a wife. She didn't have the charm, sophistication, or beauty that was important to a man like Adam. She wondered how long it would be before Adam realized it too.